Alright, new year, new me, and all that good stuff. I have decided I am done with Season 1 of MLP. We've just been on this way too long, and it's because my schedule has been so busy that I just keep bopping back and forth between a consistent upload schedule and an inconsistent one. But today, we are finishing My Little Pony Season 1. Strap in, gents. Next episode is episode 23, the Cutie Mark Chronicles, and this might be my very favorite episode in Season 1. So after nearly a full season of trying to get their cutie marks, the Crusaders finally have the unbelievable, unparalleled idea, hey, maybe we should ask some other people how they got their cutie marks. Now, ultimately, really, Scootaloo wants to ask Rainbow Dash, but along the way they end up meeting the other main 6 characters and consistently getting their stories out of them. First is Applejack, who it turns out left the Apple family wanting to be a big city pony, and she went with her uncle and Aunt Orange for a while in Manhattan. Apples and oranges, get it? It's really funny. I think there is something really cool and honestly really adorable about young Applejack trying to fit in with these ponies, that it's almost like a 2-minute version of My Fair Lady. There's something really charming about the way she tries to fit in, but ultimately the way she realizes that this is not her home. And as much as she likes the idea of being a big city pony, none of this ultimately gels with her or her personality or who she wants to be. The thing that ultimately tells her, yeah, I'm just going to go home, is she sees a rainbow blazing across the sky leading back to Ponyville. Fluttershy gets her cutie mark because Rainbow Dash is defending her honor against these guys who are bullying her. During this, Fluttershy happens to fall off of a cloud. She's falling to her death, even though she's a Pegasus, because when she's scared, she can't fly. This is one of the reasons that I'm not a huge fan of Fluttershy. But she's saved by a huge cushion of butterflies. This is part of the reason why her cutie mark is a butterfly. She realizes that she has a way with animals, and this is her first time she's ever been on the ground. And that her love of everything down here is just so great that she never wants to go back to live among the clouds. In a way, she's sort of like an earth pony living in a Pegasus's body. Now, I think the whole moment is kind of undercut for me personally, specifically because I think it's one of the worst songs in Season 1. After this, we hear Rarity's story of how she got her cutie mark. And this is why I've said before that, funny enough, Rarity's cutie mark is actually, that her special talent is finding jewels, not dressmaking. This is an interesting piece of lore because it means that the special talent / destiny of the person may be tied to talents that are only tangentially related to their special talent. So Rarity's special talent is not dressmaking. It's something that she loves and devotes her life to, and her special talent helps her do it. However, it's not actually her chief motivation. I've always thought that made Rarity a really interesting character, and I've never heard anybody really talk about it in the fandom. There's also a really funny moment where Rarity's magic acts up by itself and drags her halfway across Equestria, and Rarity does not understand why it's happening. Twilight Sparkle tells them about her cutie mark, and this is another piece of character and lore building that I think is just really fascinating. Once Twilight determined that what she wanted to devote her life to was magic, she studied constantly until she eventually had her kind of entry placement test to get into Celestia's special magic school. At which point she had kind of an instinctive piece of magic which was so powerful that it not only caused the dragon egg she was supposed to be cracking to crack, and that's how Spike was born, kind of a Spike origin story, but it shows how Twilight determined what she wanted her special talent, what she wanted her destiny to be, and went out and made it happen. And fate kind of recognized that. It's an interesting piece of lore building. As I said, it's just much like Rarity's. it's odd that there is something where it seems like a pony can devote themselves to something so specifically that they develop a special talent rather than it kind of being just predetermined. Of course, you could argue with the stuff later in the show that it was predetermined, but still, Twilight's personality had to kind of predispose her down that path, and it wasn't something she was just blessed with, like Rarity. No, it was something she had to actually work on. Rarity had a piece of special magic, the very powerful magic, that just kind of came out of her, where Twilight had to absorb all of this knowledge in before she could develop the talent at all. Just fascinating. We see the origin of Pinkie Pie, who grew up on a rock farm, and that's just hilarious. Her whole family are like Amish, and they all have these very placid, straight faces. Now, Rarity, when she finds a rock filled with jewels, can't access it until a booming explosion sends a shockwave and cracks open the rock. Twilight can't get her magic to work. I guess she has performance anxiety, and it's only in a reaction to a booming shockwave that she is able to perform her magic. Pinkie only realizes her love of bright colors and parties and her desire to be very different from her family when she sees a rainbow streaking the sky for the first time. Again, Applejack sees a rainbow that leads her home. Fluttershy realizes her capacity to calm the animals once a explosion and a rainbow scare all of the woodland animals away, and she discovers she's able to comfort them. Now, you're probably getting the idea by this point. Rainbow Dash finally tells her story, and during the race where she's defending Fluttershy's honor, accentuating her loyalty, right? She goes so fast that she breaks through the sound barrier, color barrier. Ooh, that sounds kind of racist, doesn't it? She breaks through whatever and creates the sonic rain boom, the thing of legend. She is able to perform this trick, which everybody thought was a myth and could not actually be done. It sends a huge sonic boom followed by a massive, dazzlingly bright rainbow all across Equestria. So that's right, Rainbow Dash's first rain boom caused all of the others to get her cutie mark, and as a result of doing the rain boom, Rainbow got her own cutie mark. That means the destiny of these 6 were tied together a decade or more before they even, most of them anyway, knew each other. These 6 friends were kind of tied together, and even in season 1, we're getting the idea that cutie marks actually in some way don't just mean something like a special talent, but they're in some way tied to the pony's actual destiny. The cutie mark in some way is determinative, or maybe illustrative, that fate in some way knows that these ponies are going to make their mark and play their part in a specific way later down the road. If you've seen the other later episodes, you know what I just did in that sentence, and listen, I think it's worth at least a little bro hoof. Come on, give me some. This is one of my favorite episodes in the whole series, and it's one of my favorite episodes of season 1. Now, I did say, back when we were talking about the Young Flyers competition, that I thought that episode should have aired later after another episode, and I said we'd get to it when we got to that episode. Well, we're here now. I think this episode should have aired first, and the reason why is that we're already told in that episode that Rainbow had performed the Sonic Rain Boom one time before. We don't get told what that time was, but we know that there's a lot of pressure on her to do it again. And personally, I think it would have meant more. I think that the tension, the stress on Rainbow to do it, actually would have been, I think, a bigger amount of stress on her, because now she's trying to prove and replicate that it wasn't just this one-off moment, but that this thing that connected all of them as friends is something she's capable of repeating. In a way, it's sort of like doing it in the name of their friendship. I don't know. It just seems to me like we should have seen this episode first, and then we would have understood what the Sonic Rain Boom was. I know maybe the idea was to hold it so that when you see it happen, it's more spectacular, but I don't know. maybe it's just me. I thought this episode should come first. And I love that moral that Twilight gives at the end. Hey, you might be attached to somebody in this very specific and interesting way, and you don't even know it yet. But it's possible maybe you and your future friends are looking at the same rainbow. That's a cool message. A little bit on the cheesy side, but, I like cheesy things. Again, one of my favorite episodes in the series, so not much more to say. Let's just move on to the next episode. Next on the roster is episode 24, Owl's Well That Ends Well. And this one I'm kind of torn on because most people, myself included, not a huge fan of Spike in season 1. In fact, I don't really think Spike comes into his own as a character until about season 4. Season 3 is not so bad, but that's a short season. So here's where I'm torn. This is where we first start to get Spike kind of showing his anxieties and his insecurities as a person. He's also younger than the rest of the cast, and even though it's only by a couple years, some people go, oh, if they call him a baby dragon, so he must be, substantially younger. But, you see in the previous episode how Twilight was effectively a kindergartner, maybe first grade, at the time Spike was hatched out of his egg. Which, I don't know, to me it seems like there must not really be much more than about 5 years between the two of them. And if we're going by what most fans think, Twilight's about 20, 21. She's around college age, and the rest of the cast follows suit roughly around those ages, which means Spike has to be, 16 or 17. But all of these cast members, because it's a children's show, do kind of act younger than they are at times, but sometimes they act much older. And all of these main characters have their own businesses and jobs. They're out on their own. Twilight, again, seems more like a college student, still learning. Applejack's running a business with her family. Rarity is running a fashion empire within just a couple years of the show's first episode. Fluttershy is running kind of an animal sanctuary, which grows exponentially as the show goes on. Pinkie Pie is the most successful party planner in town. And it's just really hard to say that these people are that young. So yeah, Spike may be younger than them, but he can't be substantially younger. Anyway, with that rant out of the way, Spike does act more immature in this episode, but it's the sort of thing that I would still imagine a 12 to 15-year-old doing. He damages Twilight's book, and instead of telling her, he hides it back on the shelf in the library and just hopes she won't need it anytime soon. Now, during this episode, we get another joke, much like the Huffy the Magic Dragon joke. Now, season 1 was not a point where they would have known or been able to guess that this show was going to pick up a fan base of mostly adults. So it is kind of weird that they made jokes like Huffy the Magic Dragon and the punch has been spiked. During this episode, Twilight meets her pet owl, Owlowiscious. Very clever name, if I do say so myself. And again, this is just where we see a lot of Spike's insecurities come in. And some of it's kind of contrived. Rarity gives Spike a big bow to wear around his neck, and then later does the same thing for Owlowiscious. And this makes Spike jealous, of course, because he's in love with Rarity. But there's not really many times in the whole series where you get the idea that Rarity thinks about Spike as if he is a pet. Now, probably my favorite moment in the whole episode is when Spike dresses like an old 1920s silent film villain with the black cape and the top hat and the big handlebar mustache, and he's ripping apart a mouse toy and pouring ketchup on the ground to try to make it look like Owlowiscious has murdered a mouse to make Twilight think Owlowiscious is vicious. Nice rhyme. Spike throughout the episode is really just trying to frame Owlowiscious to make everybody think he's a bad guy, rather than relying on his own merits. But at the same time, this message of the episode is really undercut by the fact that actually Spike is kind of right. Everybody is replacing him with Owlowiscious. And I guess you could say, it's from Spike's perspective, so Spike feels that way, and so that's how he sees it. And we get some indications of stuff like that in other episodes where Spike's memory of events is not exactly as they were objectively witnessed by the audience. But that's the thing. It's Spike's memory, and so it can be subjective. But this is, the audience is seeing things. We expect in a show like this, where they are always more or less objective, that we're going to continue seeing events as they're actually unfurling, and not from the focus of a character who we're not seeing through their POV through the whole episode. So I don't know, that explanation just doesn't do it for me personally. Spike runs away and he ends up in the lair of, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the same dragon as in Dragon Shy. And Spike goes into his cave, and the dragon thinks that Spike is trying to steal his jewels, because Spike actually is stealing his jewels. He's eating them, but he doesn't realize that they belong to somebody else. The dragon might be a different color, but it's a very similar character design if it's not the same dragon. And Owlowiscious ends up saving Spike, but it's not as cut and dry as you would think in a lot of kids' episodes. It's not just Owlowiscious does this, and so Spike gains an appreciation for him. No, Twilight also rescues Spike with Owlowiscious, and Owlowiscious helps guide them out of the forest and back to safety. And Twilight ends up actually having to acknowledge the fact that Spike felt insecure about this.
No one could ever replace you, Spike. Not even when you are being a jealous numbskull.
Now, Twilight's explanation I don't think is that great either. She's basically like, well, I need help at night too, Spike. It's not that I'm replacing you, but Owlowiscious is nocturnal. The problem with that explanation is, all of the times that are making Spike jealous, Owlowiscious is being doted on during the daytime. He's not asleep. If he was asleep all day, then this problem would never have arisen. But at least it is nice that after Spike apologizes for running away, Twilight apologizes and says she should have been more sensitive to his feelings. Which is good. I mean, at least it's not like everything was Spike's fault and nobody acknowledges where they could have also done better. So, given that, it's not a bad episode. I like large swaths of it. In fact, I like Owlowiscious. I think he's awful cute. And he is pretty useful. There's a running joke that I think is atrocious, where every time the owl says who, Spike is like, oh, why do you keep saying who all the time? Trying to explain who they're talking about. And for some strange reason, Twilight even does the same thing at the end. And she forgets that owls only say who. And I just don't think it's a very good joke, particularly to end the episode on. Onward and upward to one of the weirdest episodes of this show. It is such a wild episode, and I'm gonna be blunt. There are times where it's uncomfy, and I'm not the only one with that opinion, by the way. It has some really weird moments. Now I'm gonna say, going into this, that my family has a history of bipolar disorder, and so I don't say this in a mean way. Episode 25, Party of One, makes me genuinely wonder if Pinkie Pie is bipolar. And again, I'm not saying that in like a rude or derogatory sense. I mean that seriously. I think she's bipolar. And probably needs some assistance. The episode starts out with Pinkie Pie throwing a party, and we see throughout the rest of the party that she's trying to throw another party and nobody wants to come to it. And she starts to think that because all of her friends are acting very suspicious and deliberately avoiding her, they're talking about her behind her back, there are good reasons for her to think that they actually are, like, abandoning her, don't want to be her friend anymore, sort of thing. There's even a point where Pinkie Pie's getting really on edge, and she's trying to get information and see, like, in Applejack's barn, because she knows something's going on, and Applejack straight up shuts the barn door on her head, in her face, and it looks really painful. I mean, they make it look unpleasant. And Pinkie Pie is getting angrier the whole time. She ends up interrogating Spike, and being like, tell me what's happening, I want to know what's happening, and Spike doesn't get it. It leads to one of my favorite jokes, something I quote all the time, where Spike is like, looking good, Spike, looking real good. Anytime my wife does something, she's like, what do you think? I go, looking good, honey, looking real good. I don't know why that moment struck me so funny, but it's something I've always held with me. And at a certain point, Pinkie Pie is like trying to grill him, and he doesn't know what she wants, so she's like demanding answers, and he's like, what do you want me to say? And she's like, you just need to tell me that my friends don't like me anymore, and they don't want to be my friend anymore. And Spike's like, okay, fine, your friends don't like you, and they don't want to be your friend anymore. And he doesn't say it like cruelly, he's saying it because she actually is like putting him under serious duress. And as soon as this happens, this is like so unbelievably uncomfortable. Her hair loses all of its fluff. Her color scheme gets noticeably darker. And then she goes off by herself and starts having like a tea party sort of situation with these inanimate objects that are all based on the personalities of her friends. And every time her psyche seems to kind of like fracture a little bit, she like does like a Mr. Crocker sort of face, and the background warps into this like uncanny tie-dye, like it just, the whole scene is so uncomfortable. And oh my gosh, I don't like it. Like, I know some people find it really funny. I do not. I think there's something really disturbing about this episode. Now understand, I'm not saying I dislike the episode. I actually really like this episode. But it's the way I like a horror movie. I know that's weird to say about My Little Pony of all things. But again, that being said, I like the episode, but it worries me for Pinkie Pie. Like, I love Pinkie as a character, and so when this happens, it makes me think like, man, she really is in a bad mental state. And I don't think her friends realize it's happening. And as somebody who's been in a bad mental state before and his friends didn't realize what was happening, that's a dangerous place to be. You don't want to be in that place. Now, happily, I think the actual point of this was to play it up that Pinkie, Pinkie, I don't know how to salvage this to be anything except Pinkie has a serious mental illness that needs treating. Because it would only take one thing to drive her over the edge. Happily, we know, because of the way the series ends, that never happens. But, man, like, if something bad enough happened to fracture her mental state, I think Pinkie Pie would be a serial killer. It's scary. And, at the end, it turns out her friends were just throwing her a surprise party. And that makes it all better. Her hair poofs up again. And when Rainbow is like, she was having like a tea party with inanimate objects, like, Pinkie just kind of looks embarrassed. Now, let me try to salvage it a little bit by saying Pinkie is a very over-the-top personality. She's somebody who acts silly. It's possible that somebody this over-the-top and goofy and silly could theoretically behave in this over-the-top way as a way of coping or something. But if you saw this in a person in real life and you weren't concerned about them, I don't know what more could happen to make you concerned. Because it's, like I said, there's just something seriously uncomfortable about the whole situation. And, I love the episode for what it is. But that being said, I am not sure it should have been in the first season, which they thought they were just making for kids. This sort of episode coming up later, when an adult fan base was the majority demographic, fine. But not season 1. Wow. I mean, this is the sort of thing that if it was Encourage the Cowardly Dog, I think it would have kind of fit. Finally, gents, we made it. The last episode of season 1. I told you I'd get to it eventually. So, the Grand Galloping Gala. We built up a couple of different episodes just to kind of get us ready for this episode. And we open with Twilight doing like a Cinderella-style carriage to get them to the ball on time. She magically makes an apple grow into a carriage, and she turns some mice into horses, an incredibly questionable piece of magic considering horses and ponies are people in this universe. It's 80 kinds of weird, and the horse mice things are just god-awful to look at. But it's all good. Rarity uses her feminine charm to coerce some stallions into pulling their carriage for them. So all's well that ends well, and a great message for little girls. If things don't go your way, just, bat your eyelashes and men will fall at your feet to do them for you. And, you know what? Maybe that's not a great message for kids. Now, for the first quarter of the episode or so, the girls are just getting ready, getting their hair done, stuff like that. And reiterating all of the great things that they want to do at the gala. The reasons why all of them wanted to go to begin with. And all of their motivations, wonderfully, stay exactly the same as when they were desiring the tickets so desperately that they were willing to beg, borrow, and steal. They all still have these very strong motivations for why they want to be there. Daniel Ingram is a huge fan of Stephen Sondheim. I pointed that out before. You could tell because he paid a great homage to one of Sondheim's lesser-known, but fantastic songs from Sunday in the Park with George, putting it together. He did this when Rarity was building up the dresses, and I said back in that episode, at any time we have a song relating to the gala, it's a Sondheim homage, and this one is no different. Into the Gala is an homage of Into the Woods. And like before, I'll play you a little bit of it so you get a sense of it.
At the gala, in the garden, I'm going to see them all the creatures, I'll befriend them at the gala. And I'll earn a lot of money for the Apple family. The Wonderbolts will see me right here at the gala. Didn't need to sell, to find, to prove, to woo, to talk. Into the gala, into the gala.
I think this song is just perfect musical song. If you put this in a proper musical, this could be like the end of Act 1. It's a fantastic song. It's such a great build-up. It's such a good explanation. The lyrics and the music are such a good explanation of these characters and what their motivation is in very succinct form. You get a sense of what all of them want to do there, what their expectations are. And we keep getting this reiteration that the girls, from the opening of the episode until this point, they are thinking this is going to be the best night ever. And anybody who's ever seen a comedy before knows pretty much from the time they say that sentence, it's going to be a disaster. The song is just so great, and their little fantasies they have surrounding, what they're doing. I just love it, and I love how the party guests are all involved as like a choir singing backup. Now, once they're in, Rarity finds out that her prince is a jerk. Twilight finds out that the princess is so busy meeting and greeting guests that she has no time for her. Fluttershy realizes that all the animals there don't seem to be held sway over by her magic. She can't get them to give her the time of day. Rainbow Dash finds out that the party's so loud and so crowded she can't get the Wonderbolts' attention. And Pinkie Pie finds out that these sort of ponies are not the party hard sort of ponies. These are the uptight suit and tie ponies, and that's not the sort of party she was expecting. In fact, that sums up how they all feel. Now, I gotta give this episode something. It doesn't just go straight into the chaos. Every pony has a moment where they think things are actually going to be what they wanted. They're just kind of like a nice little subversion of expectations. You might think that things are immediately going to start going downhill, but no, they have a moment where things are looking up, only for all of their dreams to be crushed. But all the girls are, they're all such great characters, and they're all, for the most part anyway, so active. They don't just immediately give up. They all determine, no, if I have to force it, if it costs me everything, I'm going to make this night everything I wanted it to be.
No, I've waited all my life for this moment, and I'm not going to let it slip by. If it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna make this the best night ever.
So Fluttershy goes out setting traps, trying to get the animals, like forcibly hold them against their will, which, you know, maybe there's a couple of these ponies that need mental help. Pinkie Pie decides to basically take over the music at the party. Rarity decides to force Prince Blueblood into a situation where he can be more chivalrous. Applejack decides that she's going to take all of her wares and basically build something really fancy, high society that everybody there is going to want to eat. And though it's never exactly explained, I think her idea is if she can just get them to eat something, maybe they will want to come to her for more because they'll see the quality after they've eaten it. Rainbow is putting people in danger, trying to save them to impress the Wonderbolts, but they're not seeing it. Then we come to song number 2 in this episode, The Pony Pokey. I kind of love this song.
You reach your right who fit, you reach your right who foul, and you shake it all about. You do the pony pokey, meeting lots of folks with clout. That's what I'm talking about.
This episode is also the first time we get introduced with some focus on one of my favorite background characters, Octavia. I love Octavia. I have a shirt with her on it. I just love her. I think she's such a great little character. She only speaks in one episode, but she's just awesome. Now, probably the most famous of the breakdowns that every pony is going through during this episode is Fluttershy, who, it becomes kind of a thing with her, but this was the first time we really saw it in full bloom, is Fluttershy, when she is pressed to the max, she has some anger issues. Not as bad as Pinkie Pie's bipolar disorder, but some pretty severe anger issues. So Pinkie Pie takes over the music and starts DJing. Applejack comes in with her big fancy cake, and as Pinkie Pie dives into the crowd to try to crowd surf, she knocks the cake up in the air. As the cake falls, Prince Blueblood grabs Rarity and pushes her in front of him to save himself from being splattered with cake. And if you know anything about Rarity, messing up her dresses is a bad move.
You, sir, are the most uncharming prince I have ever met!
Stay back! I just had myself groomed!
In her final effort to impress the Wonderbolts, Rainbow Dash accidentally pushes over all of the columns in the ballroom, basically destroying the entire party. Celestia comes in with Twilight, and they look around and see everything that's going on.
It can't get any worse.
Now, with wild animals running loose in the ruined ballroom and food everywhere, Celestia tells Twilight just about the only wise thing you could do in that situation.
Run.
I love the fact that Fluttershy is literally holding an animal in her mouth at that moment. This, however, has to be probably my favorite joke in the episode, and it doesn't seem to get as much attention because Fluttershy kind of steals the show, but this is a great reaction.
Rarity, your glass slipper! Now your prince is sure to find you! Let's go!
At the end of the night, we see that Spike has gone off by himself. He wanted to spend time with his friends, but they all wanted to do their own thing, so he goes to Donut Joe, maybe one of the most underrated of the background characters. He's there eating donuts by himself, and the rest of the cast shows up, and he hears what happened.
That sounds like the worst night ever.
It was!
It's nice to see that they aren't really disappointed anymore. They've kind of enjoyed the adventure for what it was. In hindsight, they can all find it funny. And we even get Princess Celestia to come in and kind of give us our moral for the day.
But tonight was just awful.
Oh, Twilight, the Grand Galloping Gala is always awful. That is why I was thrilled you were all attending. I was hoping you could liven things up a bit. I'm sure you'll agree that, in the end, it didn't turn out so bad for this group of friends.
Yep, didn't turn out so bad for this group of friends. However, everybody else had their night ruined, Princess Celestia. You know, I think this might be the origin of the idea that Celestia is just an outright troll. Because the tea thing in that episode we talked about just a few days ago, that wasn't really a troll move. That was just kind of a simple little gotcha. This is just outright trolling the entire city of Canterlot. So, by nobody getting what they want,
You mean doing exactly what I wanted to do the whole time?
Yes, Spike, you were right.
Oh, sorry, Spike got what he wanted, but everybody else getting absolutely nothing that they wanted out of this experience, they still found the positivity in it, and found that, you know, having that good story to tell later, and these weird memories to look back on, was kind of worth it. After almost 2 years of covering season 1 of My Little Pony, you know what? I have to say, same thing goes for me. I have actually really enjoyed doing this series, even though I've had to do it around a lot of other things, including the birth of my child. I've had to really fight to get these episodes done around everything else in my life, as well as the other episodes that I've been making for this show. And, yeah, I don't regret it at all. I'm really happy that I ultimately have gotten through season 1. And next week, we start season 2. Thank you everybody for watching. God bless you, and I will see you in the next one.